Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. What is making national headlines today is that the BJP has picked Advocate Ujjwal Nikam to contest in the Mumbai North-Central constituency for the 2019 Lok Sabha elections. Advocate Ujjwal Nikam is known for being the public prosecutor in the 26/11 dastardly Mumbai attacks. He was at the forefront on the trial of Ujjwal Kasab, who was the perpetrator of those heinous attacks that killed hundreds of people in the country in Mumbai. There has been a strong undercurrent that has been going on in the country for the last 10 years, and this has been reiterated time and again by the current government of India with regards to how its approach towards terrorism in the country is going to be. The government has made in unequal terms that it is going to act against terror. So when the Prime Minister of the country and the Union Defence Minister come out and say that they are going to attack the enemies who target India and its national security by entering into the homes and the territories and the countries of these terrorists where they reside, and therefore the narrative that flows out and the picking of the candidate like Advocate Ujjwal Nikam, who has been at the forefront, who has been fighting against terrorists, who has been extremely vocal about the country's integrity and the country's security against terrorists. So let's start this discussion. Ambassador Basuti Mukherjee, I was having a conversation with Ujjwal Nikam just a few moments ago about how he feels himself to be represented as a candidate in the coming Lok Sabha elections picked by the BJP. Is this just a coincidence that Ujjwal Nikam, who was fighting, he was the public prosecutor in the 1993 Mumbai train attacks, in the 26/11 Mumbai 2008 attacks, he has been fighting the case of Poonam Mahajan's father Pramod Mahajan, and has a very pragmatic view and a straightforward view of how the terrorists in our country need to be treated and how the government of the day needs to act upon?
But absolutely, Megha, I had the pleasure of meeting Advocate Ujjwal Nikam when I was ambassador to the Netherlands. He had been invited for a conference, and I remember how he explained the manner in which, in accordance with rule of law, he proved to the court that Ujjwal Kasab was without remorse, that he had executed Indians, that he was a terrorist, and that despite the fact that the government of Pakistan refused to acknowledge that he was a Pakistani, his parents had called him up several times from Lahore and wanted to speak to him, and that he was treated in a humane manner in his death cell until he was executed. That being so, I would love to ask Advocate Ujjwal Nikam today that the whole country at that time, after Mumbai, I was in Geneva at that time when Mumbai happened, why did the then government not engage in hot pursuit, which would have been supported by the entire international community? But they did not do any hot pursuit, and as a result, they demonstrated that India had a weak belly for pursuit of terrorists. That was finally demolished when the present government took over and we introduced a policy of hot pursuit. So I congratulate the government for having selected Advocate Ujjwal Nikam, and it would be very nice at some point to hear from him, since he is the one who was absolutely central to the persecution of this terrorist who's been executed, Ujjwal Kasab, that what does he have to say about the fact that when Mumbai occurred, it took the Home Minister 4 hours and he held up the NSG contingent at the airport because apparently he was used to changing his clothes 4 times in a day, and he delayed the aircraft departure for Mumbai. What happened? Why did we not do hot pursuit? We knew where they had come from. We should have set out a signal. Had we done so at that time, Megha, maybe many other terrorist attacks would not have taken place. So this is something that the country needs to know, And now that he is fighting elections, I congratulate him, and I'm sure he will win, because already at that time, he was a hero as far as India was concerned. He remains a hero as far as the ones here on the panel are concerned. Megha.
Absolutely. Professor Madan Alapat, I did ask that question to Advocate Ujjwal Nikam about what he thought of the then UPA government and its laxity in the action that had to be taken that would have showcased the world and Pakistan that it was serious and meant business when it was encountered with a terrorist attack by Lashkar-e-Toiba, by Jaish-e-Mohammed, who was sitting tight and given safe havens by Pakistan.
Well, you're quite right, Megha. For decades, actually, the government of India, the then government of India, pursued a policy of turning the other cheek. And all that happened was other cheek was also slapped, even harder. The fact is that Ujjwal Nikam, as a prosecutor, tore to shreds the Pakistan disinformation machine, aided and abetted by some elements in India, that this entire attack was basically a quote-unquote Hindu terror attack. The effort of the Pakistanis was not only to have a terror attack, but to blame the Hindu community for that. And for that, I think there were, if I'm not mistaken, there were religious marks on the forehead of some of the attackers. They wore threads that are normally worn by Hindus. And in very many other ways, they tried to pretend to be Hindus. So the fact is that this disinformation effort was torn to shreds by Ujjwal Nikam in his cross-examination and to the satisfaction of the entire international community. Now, of course, the way I look at this particular pick, I think it's a very interesting and a very wise pick. Ujjwal Nikam is certainly an individual who has done tremendous service to the country in terms of prosecuting terrorists. There's no question about it. And he certainly merits a ticket.
Yeah.
I think, Megha, that we are looking at the contours of possibly the new Modi government. I mean, the third term of Prime Minister Modi in some of the selections that are being made for members of parliament.
Sumit Peer, we all know, I think the country recognizes Advocate Ujjwal Nikam as the key person who was involved and who ensured that Ajmal Kasab was tried and prosecuted in the 26/11 Mumbai attack case. Does this further strengthen BJP's resolve and the narrative that is putting out and explaining to the people that, listen, we are here to safeguard our country. We are here to fight the terrorists. We are not going to be sitting down when terrorists attack our country. So whether it is Pulwama, or it is Uri, or it is Balakot, there is going to be equal and more aggressive and offensive that will be undertaken by the country and successfully executed, so that there is never going to be another terrorist which would be looking at India and thinking of orchestrating an attack like the 1993 Mumbai blasts or the 2001 Parliament attack, or for that matter, the Mumbai 2008 attacks.
Megha ji, thank you very much for having me on your show. After Ambassador Ma'am has spoken and Madhav sir has spoken, I would add one more perspective to it. You see, Prime Minister Modi is very, very clear. Hum ghar mein ghus ke marenge. And Rajnath Singh ji said, hum ghar mein ghus ke marenge. That is a present continuous thing. That is, it is not going to end. As long as we are in the power, wherever you are in the world, even if it's Pakistan or anywhere else, if it means for the national security of India and 1.4 billion people, we will come and do what we have to do. That's a message which is very clear, and the world has started living with it. The world has started resonating to it. So that's a very clear message on the off front. Now, if you look at Mr. Ujjwal Nikam, usually when you have advocates and lawyers, with all due respect to them, usually, ma'am, if you look at the paradigm of the thing, it is usually much, much more beneficial to be on the other side. If you protect criminals, if you protect those gangsters and all, you can get millions and millions. You can become a crorepati overnight. It is very, very difficult to be on a salary of a public prosecutor and to fight the most high-profile cases of India. Because if you turn the other way around, you're a short crorepati within a month. So what do? It takes a people of iron resolve and commitment. This talks of Deshbhakti. This talks of the love for nation, because I don't want money. I don't want anything. I will do what is in the national interest. So it's a message to all those nationalists, to all those national heroes who do not wear the uniform of the army, but are fighting for the country every day. So these people will get a very, very powerful message that Modi government takes care of them. If Mr. Nikam was on the other side of the law, on the other side of defending all these people, he could have made maybe 50 crores, he was worth 100 crores maybe now, but he chose not to do it. He always chose to be on the right side of the law, and he is an ideal public prosecutor, what we have seen in movies and all, how it should be. And it has also shown us one thing: it doesn't matter how expensive a lawyer is. It doesn't matter, how good or bad my office is. What it matters is my zeal and my trust and my sincerity. If I have the zeal, I have the trust, and I have the sincerity, I can win you the most high-profile cases on planet Earth. That is what Mr. Nikam has shown, and awarding him with the ticket and giving him an opportunity of leadership, because while doing this, he already exhibited the traits of a leader, a nationalist. Now, by giving him a ticket, you are endorsing all such people. I am very sure there are so many people who work behind the scenes, and there are so many people who don't come to media and get to talk on the media. But all these people will see a ray of hope. Will see that nahi, the Modi government is recognizing the people who come from common, walks of life, who are not rich, who are not millionaires, who are not billionaires, but they have done they have done a lot for the country. They've always contributed for the country, and at the cost of money, fame, and luxuries of life, they chose to do what is right and what is in the national interest. This is the bigger message. And for Pakistan, is all people like Mr. Nikam is कि देखिए यमराज के दो चेहरे होते हैं. One is the Yamraj we know, second is Mr. Nikam for all of these people. So let them be happy with that.
Okay. Major General Dhruv Katoch, now has the perception of India as a country that continues to be dormant and weak-hearted in fighting terrorism perhaps 10 years ago versus the India of today that takes the bull by its horns and ensures that our safety, the safety of our people, the integrity and the sovereignty of the country is the responsibility solely of the government of India, solely of the defense forces of our country, and we act and we do not sit on dossiers for years and years together and to then completely forget about it and then be stuck ourselves in bureaucracy because we are too timid, we are too shy, we are too quiet to actually do anything about it.
Thank you, Megha. Megha, when I look into the entire terrorism scene, I view it as, unless you go after the kingpins, the originators from where, or the people from where terrorism originates, and make it expensive for them, the system will never end. Now, for very long, Pakistan has been using pawns. You send some people across, if they die, it doesn't make a difference to the Pakistanis. But the question came, as soon as there was a response against those people, as soon as there was a response against the military, the Pakistani military, when either you talk of the surgical strikes or Balakot, because it had the added advantage of being advertised. Then that fear comes in the opponent side, listen, we can be hit also. There is that element of deterrence which was built in. Earlier, there used to be a very peculiar word. I think it was very peculiar. We used to talk of strategic patience, which really meant cowardice. Very frankly, it simply means cowardice. We don't want to do anything. So we will use the word strategic and add patience to it and say, okay, we are still doing something. Because, Pakistan is a neighbor. We can't live without neighbors. We can't change the borders. So we exercise strategic patience. Now, I think that, that lexicon has changed. What had happened as far as the post the Mumbai attacks were concerned, strategic messaging has changed now. And that messaging is very, very clear. Balakot made it the clearest yet that we will strike 100 kilometers deep inside you if required. And the beauty of it was, once you change that strategic messaging from strategic peace to strategic action, regardless of where it occurs, the world accepted it. In fact, it is a very strange thing that the world, which used to always talk of, India is a nice, peace-loving nation, Gandhian principles and all that, they said, yes, you've got the right to defend yourself. And when we are looking at any form of law or justice, whether we are looking at any part of the UN, any of the UN chapters on the subject, one thing has been made very clear: you have the right to defend yourself. And that is the right which India has exercised. And the messaging which has gone across is we will continue to exercise it.
Right.
And on that process, just one more line, Megha.
Yeah.
Through that, the Rubicon has been crossed and the strategic messaging has changed. And I think that is a fundamental change which has taken place in India, and making Ujjwal Nikam a candidate for Parliament, giving him a Lok Sabha ticket, I think is certainly a measure of that strategic change which has taken place to tell the people this is what this government will do and will continue to do. Megha.
Ambassador Mukherjee, we see there has been a lot of international criticism coming India's way about the allegations being made, whether it is about the murder of Pannu, whether it is about fighting Khalistani terrorism sitting out of Canada, whether we talk about the United States of America talking about a foiled assassination attempt at yet another Khalistani terrorist in United States of America, or we talk about these targeted attacks on the aides and the commanders and the leaders of a number of terrorist organizations that have safe havens in Pakistan. Now, while we are also fighting these narratives of the world pointing fingers at us and accusing us of using our intelligence forces to attack these individuals in a clandestine fashion, there is also, don't you think, a resonance within the country of how the government is here to safeguard the territory, to ensure the national interest is at the forefront. And like I said, we mean business. So are people of India convinced that the government is here for the good of the people, for the welfare of the people, for national integrity?
The narrative has been completely transformed in 2 years, in two terms of the Prime Minister Modi's government. The people of India are convinced that the strategic patience, as General Katoj sarcastically pointed out, has been taken over by what is called strategic pursuit of India's enemies. That's the way I would put it. Strategic pursuit of India's enemies means that we do exactly what the United States has done. We go after our enemy and we take him or her down, so that the message is given that we are not a weak state. Earlier, when Mumbai happened, we used to be continuously told that India lives in a hostile neighborhood and cannot change its history and geography. India can change its geography, but we are not going to do that because we are not an imperialist state. But India can remedy its history by making the message clear that it's not business as usual. As far as the narrative coming from the West is concerned, you would note, Megha, that that narrative is changing. If you look at the latest issue of Economist, which I read this morning, it talks about the strength of India. It talks about the strength of the Indian economy. It talks about the importance of the Indian economy in ensuring a global revival. It talks about the fact that at a time when the international global order is going through a very uneasy and transitory phase, India stands as a beacon of solidarity. In other words, the earlier Western dependence on Pakistan because of its strategic positioning has been inexorably overturned by the new big elephant in the continent, that's India, and its capability of not only fending for itself, but showing that it can not only defend its interests, in doing so, it can go in hot pursuit. And I wonder if the West has seen elephants in hot pursuit, going after its enemy and taking them down. So that is what matters. And frankly, Megha, do you and I really believe that the people of India are in the least interested in what some editorial in London, in Economic Times of New York or the Washington Post is saying? We are a huge country. We have our own preoccupations. We don't bother about these narratives. These narratives crop up before an election and they fade away after the election. That is exactly what's going to happen, I'm sure about it. But in the meantime, I do rejoice that the selection of this candidate sends out a strong message that those who are willing to stand up and defend India's national interests on the minuscule salary which he was getting at that time. I know that because I've discussed it with him. These are the real heroes of India who need to be honored, and I am so happy that he has been selected by the BJP to stand for this important post. Megha.
Professor Nalapit, now, you know, we have our course cut out for us. The fact that our other panelists have said that, you know, this is going to be the stand that India takes, not just in the last 10 years, where we have seen that there is calm that has been witnessed for the last 10 years. Now, there were these bombing that took place in Barakhamba. There was one bomb that was put in a garbage bin in GK1 at one point of time. This was during the UPA era. There were the Lajpat Nagar attacks that had taken place, 2001 parliament attacks. No concrete cohesive action, and it all culminated in the 2008 Mumbai attacks. That was a massive loss for the government, for the Mumbai police. The fact that there were a bunch of these 10 terrorists that were sent by Pakistan, and they held Mumbai hostage for 3 days. I think this has never happened in the history of the country, or for that matter, of the biggest democracies of the country have perhaps never seen an attack such as this that was seen by Mumbai, that was seen by India. Now, are we then as countrymen rest assured that under the Modi government, at least this much is assured, that a repeat of the 2008 Mumbai terror attack will not happen in the unforeseeable future?
Well, Megha, there's no question under Prime Minister Modi, the entire approach has changed. And so far as the Pakistani army was concerned, they knew very well there'd be no counteroffensive. And part of the reason is, I mean, I've studied the financial networks of Sino-Wahhabi lobby. They're immense. And I think it was Sumit was talking about the fact that Ujjwal Nikam resisted financial benefit. It's not just open benefit of representing a client who pays him well. It's also the covert benefits that would have been offered by the Sino-Wahhabi lobby so that he messes up the case in such a way that in appeal, etc., it becomes a very messy case. Instead of which he stitched together a perfect case, and the Indian court system worked at very commendable speed, and justice was done. So there's no question about that. I want to say one thing. It takes two to tango, as you know. Man, we're talking about, we've been talking for so many years in the past about, oh, we can't change our borders. But for heaven's sake, when the other side is trying to change your border, when the other side has changed your border, not once but several times, as China did, for example, in the case of Aksai Chin and some other parts in the past, as Pakistan did, for example, with Kashmir. Now, then what are you going to do? Are you going to just sit back and accept the change, or are you going to fight back? And I think that is the point. The point is that under Prime Minister Modi, it is very clear India will fight back. India will not just stand idly by and watch as more territory gets gobbled up, as more changes get made on the map. Because when we say, as was said in the past, oh, we can't change, we can't change geography. The fact is the other side is trying to change our geography, and they should not be allowed to get away with it. And now they are definitely not being allowed to get away with it by Prime Minister Modi. Unfortunately, in the past, they used to repeatedly get away with it.
Sumit, then the narrative that the opposition political parties are trying to peddle about how there has been territory that has been ceded by India to China along the line of actual control, or for that matter, when they comment on how the Americans and the United Nations and the Germans attack India over its electoral bonds, or for that matter, the election commission or the judiciary of our country. Does this then fall on deaf ears and makes of no true credence? Because India under BJP, under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has proven oftentimes enough that our security forces, under the political will, have been able to act for the welfare of the country, for the security of the country, and this cannot be altered, this cannot be lied upon, this cannot be turned on its head, And a comparison, like I said, in 2008, when the terror attacks happened, versus the Uri strikes, versus the Balakot strikes, are an example for themselves. And the question that had also been raised in the past elections, during the electoral campaigning, where Rahul Gandhi and the Congress came out in full force against the BJP, demanding to know what is actually the proof of the surgical strikes, peddling the narrative that was being peddled by Pakistan for the longest time ever.
Megha ji, when it comes to the opposition, especially Congress in Pakistan, the first thing that comes into my mind ki ye rishta kya kehlata hai. They're always on the same path. You know, when you do a Balakot, they will ask you, give me the proof. Pakistan will say Balakot never happened. You do a Uri, you do a surgical strike, they'll say, oh, give me a proof. Pakistan will again say the same thing. We did the demonetization, which broke the back of the Pakistani economy. The people, the only two unhappy people are Congress and Pakistanis. Obviously, Pakistanis are unhappy. So this synchrony with Congress, with Pakistan, I think it goes back to decades. And unfortunately, the world and the deep state cannot see the rise of Modi ji. He cannot see Modi ji as a tall Hindu leader. He cannot see Modi ji as a nationalistic leader who is not corruptible. As per CIA reports, he is not corruptible. So when they love the people who talk coalition dharma, they love the people who talk alliance dharma, they love the people who invent words like saffron terror. You know, they love the people when Rahul Gandhi says, oh, this saffron terror is more dangerous than the Islamic terror, which is a figment of imagination. We have never seen something called as a saffron terror. They love such people. When you have people like Prime Minister Modi who say ki hum ghar mein ghus ke marenge, they'll have problem. When we have Prime Minister Modi saying main inke haath mein beek ka katora pakda dunga. Literally he did that with Pakistan. And when he recently said in an election rally, जो आतंकवाद एक्सपोर्ट करते थे अब आटे को मोहताज है. Exactly, they were exporting terror, now they don't have atta to eat. Exactly what our Prime Minister Modi has said, he has walked the talk. Today, if you don't see bomb blasts going here and there in my mohalla, your mohalla and everywhere, it is because they fear retaliation. Pakistan is fearing retaliation, and the best credit goes to Prime Minister Modi and Dr. Jaishankar Saab for one thing. There was a notion, there was a canard in the world that you cannot live without Pakistan. You have to talk to Pakistan, you have to engage with Pakistan. You cannot live without Pakistan. Prime Minister Modi proved we can live, breathe, grow and prosper without talking to Pakistan. Asia can grow, the world can grow. We can ignore Pakistan and move on. India will move on without this baggage called Pakistan. Now, if you look at today, Pakistani media, they are so desperate. They are everybody shouting, bhai, baat kar lo, this meeting, that meeting, trade kar lo, something, because geopolitically and from the Pakistan is losing that relevance. Americans are not in Afghanistan. They don't need Pakistan. And we have shown the world India, Asia, and the world can progress without this menace called Pakistan. And even as far as the China is concerned, if you look at the IMAC, if you look at the G20, they've taken the biggest decisions where China was not a part of it. Now, this India, who has emerged as a global leader, wherein they say, I don't want this sandbag Pakistan. China, you want to come along? You don't want to come along? Go and fly a kite. We can still move the world and make the things happen. Yeah. This is what people hate about Prime Minister Modi. This is what they don't like about him.
Yeah.
That resilient India is what they hate. And this man, being the architect of that, becomes the epicenter of all these canards, all these articles, all these gimmickry which is done in the Western media, just targeting one person. How to bring down the credibility of Prime Minister Modi. But with every such attempt, they are only increasing in stature. And they forget that in our country, 1 billion people vote, which is 3 times the population of the United States of America and 2 times the population of America and Europe put together.
Yeah.
Thoda samjhana padega.
Okay. Major General Ghuzkar, then, you know how the opposition has been using this term nationalism, and BJP being a quote-unquote nationalistic party, and using it in a negative reference, which has also been emulated by a number of these editorials across the world, whether it is New York Times or Guardians and BBCs and so on and so forth, where India, in contrast, and its countrymen are proud to be nationalistic, because what's wrong in being nationalistic and fighting in favor of our armed forces, backing them and ensuring that the national integrity and sovereignty is not subverted by anti-social elements, by terrorists, by the Jaish-e-Mohammeds and Lashkar-e-Toibas and the Khalistanis of the world.
Absolutely right, Megha. Megha, when certain political groups within India start criticizing the very idea of nationalism, I really haven't understood as to what they wish to gain by it, because every time they utter those words, a few thousand votes slip out of their hands. But I can understand the Western media's response to that, because I have worked out what really is meant by democracy when we use the words democracy and human rights, what does the West mean by it? We have a certain understanding of democracy and human rights, etc. But what does the West mean by it? And their meaning is very clear. As per the West, if you follow our narrative and our style, you are democratic. You may kill hundreds of thousands of people, but you follow us. You don't have your own free will. Do what we tell you to do. You are democratic. You are preservers of human rights. Now, India has said that hypocrisy is over. India is India. We will do what we have to do. ये भारत, ये नया भारत है, और हम वही करेंगे जो हमारे हक में है. And yes, we are nationalists. I think we all have to be proud to be nationalists. I think within another 5 years, after BJP 3.0 is over, even the West will realize that what is good for India is also good for them. That realization hasn't come in, but you will see in the coming years, they're going through a very bad economic phase. And then they will realize the truth of what Bharat is saying.
Right.
And I think that will be an eye-opener. Megha.
Absolutely. All right, I'm out of time. I thank all of you for joining me on this very special discussion.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.